Hey everyone, I wanted to do a really quick follow-up video to my savings plan for compute video I did last week because I saw some recurring themes of confusion or questions, so I thought we would try and address them in this video. Now the first one was related to, well, what if I have Azure Reservations, reserved instances on VMs, and I get an Azure Savings Plan? Do they stack? No, they're never going to stack. So remember, the whole point is an Azure reservation, so reserved instance on VMs, is very, very specific. It's going to be for a certain family within, I get some flexibility of the size in a very specific region. So maybe I have this reservation for EV5 in East US 2. And I have an Azure Savings Plan. Remember, an Azure Savings Plan is all of the included compute services, any region, complete flexibility. So in that case, if I had a reservation on EV5s, for the EV5s I had running in that particular region, that Azure reservation discount would apply. Because generally that's going to be bigger than Azure Savings Plan. So the Azure Savings Plan would not apply to the same resource that an Azure reservation is applying to. Now, if I had more EV5 SKUs running in East US 2 than the size, that commit of the Azure reservation, then that amount above the reservation may get that Azure Savings Plan discount applied if there wasn't another compute service running in any region I have that would have given me a better discount up to the Azure Savings Plan commit. Remember, Azure Savings Plan is that same hourly billing mechanism, and it wakes up every hour and looks across all of the regions, across all of the included compute, and it prioritizes the best discounts first and then moves down the percentages until you've hit your Azure Savings Plan commit amount. And so those EV5s would get the Azure reservation discount and not the Azure Savings Plan until I've used up essentially for that hour, that committed amount, at which point, yes, the Azure Savings Plan may apply instead for the remaining amount of that EV5 if the EV5 is the best discount compared to other things it could apply the discount to. So a key point is it works with Azure Reservations in the fact that I can have Azure Reservations and an Azure Savings Plan, but they do not stack on top of each other. It's going to be one or the other. So that's kind of that key point. And Azure Reservations are still very attractive if I do have those super stable workloads that I know, hey, I'm not going to change SKUs, I'm not going to change regions. I want the higher discount and I'll commit to that 1 or that 3-year term. So the next common question is, okay, if I think about those Azure reservations for a second then, one of the key points is today, I can trade in remaining commitment to create a new Azure reservation. So my requirements change. Hey, I no longer want to use EV5, I want to use EV6. Well, I've got a 3-year or 1-year commit. Whatever that remaining commit is, I can take the remaining commit and put it towards a new, so it's creating a brand new Azure reservation commit for a new 1 or 3-year term. The time starts again. For that amount or more. Well, that's going away. So a key point we can think about is that on the 1st of January 2024, so if I think 1/1/2024, this line, I will no longer, for new reservations I can create for compute services, be able to trade them in. Once I've locked in that 1 or 3 years, I'm using that and I'm committed to that for 1 to 3 years. But the key point is it's one's created after that 1st of January 2024. So I could think about, well, okay, if I've created some reservation here, and let's just say that term expired before that time, there's no big deal. Imagine I started it here and the term expires to that point. Well, because I created it before the 1st of January, at any time in this period, I could absolutely take that remaining dollar amount, even though it's now past the 1st of January 2024, and I could apply this amount or whatever date I choose to do it, even though it's past the 1st of January, I could take that and apply it to create a new one. But the key point is, so this is greater than whatever that dollar, or it could be equals, it has to be that or more for a new 1 or 3 year term. But this is now created post 1st of January 2024 and would now be subject to that idea of no, you can no longer trade those in. So if I create it before the 1st of January 2024, I can still do that trade after 1st of January 2024 one more time. Because the point is, after that 1st of January, you're essentially taking the remaining and creating a brand new agreement. Brand new agreement after 1st of January 2024 is subject to that new idea that you can no longer trade in remaining commit. So yes, I can still do trade-ins for my Azure reservations if they're created before 1st of January 2024. And I can even trade them in after 1st of January 2024, but only once, because obviously after that time, it's a new agreement, even if I'm taking remaining commit, and that's then subject to the no, at this point, trade in. You are at that point very much locked into that idea of, hey, that's the time. So at this point, this agreement has no option to trade in. You are locked in. And likewise, if I just created a regular brand new one, whatever that dollar amount is, you can't trade that in. Anything after 1st of January you create, hey, I can't lock that in. So again, the point is really think about this going forwards. And once again, if I do think maybe I want some flexibility, that's where that Azure Savings Plan that has that flexibility may be more attractive. So when we think about trade-ins, an important thing to think about for the Azure Savings Plan is there is no trade-in. The Azure Savings Plan is fully flexible. Hey, it's any included compute service, it's any region. The whole point is you're committing to that 1 or 3 years to get the discount. There is nothing you could take the remaining commit and trade it into. There's nothing more flexible than this. So a key point of this is there is no refund, there is no trade-in, and I'll put or refund. It's like many things in life. If I commit to a subscription for a year or 3 years, I get a big discount. You can't then just terminate it after 6 months because you've got the benefit of that discount ahead of that time. So I'm committing to, hey, I want that Azure Savings Plan for 1 or 3 years, get that full flexibility. So there is no logical trade into anything, but I do have all of that flexibility. So important point, again, think about, well, what is the amount I want? And things like Azure Advisor, when I go to the Azure Savings Plan for Compute and do a purchase, it's going to have recommendations around what I can actually do there. If I'm curious about the reporting, if you actually go and look at the reports in cost management, it can show you actually, hey, where the discount was applied. It can show you to which subscriptions, to which resources. Maybe I want to do a show back or a charge back to different business groups. There's even an API that I can go and get that information, maybe for my own dashboards. What about, I have these reserved Azure reservations, but I want to trade them in towards an Azure Savings Plan. So yes, you can do that. And for that, they do not currently have an end date. So currently, the way it would work is even past 1st of January 2024, I could maybe take an Azure reservation and I could take the remaining amount. So maybe I do change my requirements. So maybe at this point here, I could go and transfer it to a new Azure Savings Plan, again, for that amount or more. Now the documentation says it could go away in the future. They say they will give a lot of notice if they're gonna do that. But right now, I could do it now. I could do it the way it works today, past the 1st of January 2024 is what we believe. I could take an Azure reservation and trade it in. So even in the future, past 1st of January 2024, as we believe today, if I did find myself, you know what, I really do want to get out of this commitment in this region, in this particular SKU, you would be able to trade it in towards an Azure Savings Plan for compute. So that should be there. Again, if they do change that story, they've committed to give a lot of notice to say, hey, actually, past this date, you won't be able to take Azure Reservations and trade into an Azure Savings Plan. But at this point, I don't believe there's a plan for that, and there's certainly no fixed date for when that wouldn't be available to you. The Azure Savings Plan does not add itself to maybe an existing percentage discount you have on Azure resources as part of some maybe enterprise agreement. So for example, if I'm currently getting a set discount off of VMs, you won't add the Azure Savings Plan discount to that. The Azure Savings Plan is a billing mechanism. So to get an additional discount off of that Azure Savings Plan percent, you'd have to be negotiating with Microsoft account teams to actually get that. And that was it. So those were really the kind of common questions. So I think the key point is, hey, Azure Reservations and Azure Savings Plans do not stack. You get one or the other, potentially. Azure Reservations would typically apply first because it's a bigger discount. And then if you've maxed out that commit for the Azure Reservation, then if that type of resource was the most attractive discount for that hour, the Azure Savings Plan would then kick in past the Azure Reservations amount of commit you have. Azure Reservations, even if I credit before the 1st of January 2024, I can still trade in essentially once past 1st of January 2024 because, hey, that would then create a new one, but that new one would be subject to the 1st of Jan 2024. I can't trade in past that point. Azure Savings Plans for compute do not have any trade-in or refund. There's nothing to trade it into. It's completely flexible. And the whole point is you're committing to use this amount hourly for 1 or 3 years to get the nice discount. So no, you can't then change your mind 6 months in. You're making that commitment. And that's it. So hopefully that clarifies those few little maybe extra questions. Until next video, take care.